Ever wondered how far ancient civilizations went to honor gods, mourn loved ones, or seek immortality? From self-mummifying monks to sacrificial pyramids, these bizarre rituals reveal just how strange and fascinating human history can be. Here are the top 10 most bizarre ancient rituals that will blow your mind. Self-mummification, Japan. Let's start with something truly extreme. What if you willingly chose to mummify yourself while still alive? Sounds like something out of a horror movie, right? Well, in ancient Japan, a few Buddhist monks actually did this in pursuit of ultimate enlightenment. They spent years preparing their daily meals, a starvation-level diet of nuts, bark and tree roots, not exactly what you'd call soul food, and just when you think it can't get more intense, they drank urushi tea made from the sap of a poisonous tree. Why? To kill parasites and preserve the body from decay. Basically, they were embalming themselves from the inside out. Then came the final step. They were buried alive in a small stone tomb, seated in a meditation pose. A bamboo tube provided air, and each day they rang a bell to signal they were still alive. Until, one day, the bell stopped. At that point, the tomb was sealed, permanently, and if the body didn't decay, the monk was declared a living Buddha. Think about that. You endure years of suffering, poison your body, and meditate yourself to death, all for the chance, just the chance, to become a spiritual legend. Would you have that level of dedication, or does this just seem like religious obsession taken way too far? Only a handful of monks ever successfully completed the process. The rest, tragically, died in vain. Ash-eating ritual. Yanomami tribe, Amazon. Imagine losing someone close to you, and instead of burying them, you eat their ashes. Sounds disturbing? To the Yanomami tribe of the Amazon, it was an act of love and respect. Here's how it worked. After a family member died, their body was cremated. Bones, ashes, everything. The remains were then ground into a fine powder and mixed with banana soup. That mixture was consumed by the entire family. To outsiders, it may sound horrifying. But to the Yanomami, it was deeply spiritual. They believed the dead could only truly rest if they became part of the living. Think about it. Instead of letting go, you carry your loved one with you, quite literally. It wasn't about survival or cannibalism. It was about healing grief with closeness. Now, would you be able to do that if it meant honouring your loved one's spirit? For the Yanomami, it was a sacred connection, not a meal. Sati India. What if you were expected to follow your husband into death? That's exactly what happened in the ancient Indian ritual known as Sati. When a man died, his widow was expected, sometimes encouraged, sometimes forced, to throw herself onto his funeral pyre. Yes, she was burned alive, voluntarily or under intense social pressure. This wasn't a fringe custom. In some regions, Sati was seen as the ultimate act of loyalty, the sign of a truly devoted wife. The idea that a woman's life had no value after her husband's death. But here's the disturbing part. Even young widows, barely teenagers, were pushed into the flames. Some did it willingly, others had no choice. The British banned it in 1829, but isolated cases happened well into the 20th century. Even today, some memorials to Sati women still exist in rural India. So what do you think? Was this cultural devotion or pure cruelty? Does honouring tradition ever justify sacrificing someone's life? Viking ship burial, Scandinavia. You've probably heard of Vikings being buried in blazing ships, right? Well, that legend, it's mostly true. And it wasn't just about drama, it was spiritual power. In Norse culture, a warrior's death wasn't the end. It was a passage to Valhalla, the warrior's paradise. So when a chieftain or noble died, they were placed in a ship, surrounded by weapons, food, and valuables for the afterlife. But here's the darker part. Sometimes a slave girl, often young and terrified, was chosen to accompany the deceased. She would be sacrificed and placed beside the body so the master wouldn't travel alone. Arab traveller Ahmad ibn Fadlan witnessed one of these rituals and described it in brutal detail. The girl was drugged, violated, and then stabbed to death as drums beat in the background. It's hard to imagine, right? For the Vikings, it was a heroic send-off, but from today's view, it's as horrifying as it is epic. So was it a glorious farewell, or something far more tragic wrapped in myth? Footbinding China. What if your culture told you that beauty meant breaking your own body? In ancient China, girls, some as young as 5 years old, had their feet tightly bound, crushing the bones to form a 3-inch foot. It was called the Golden Lotus, and yes, it was considered beautiful. The process? Brutal. Toes were bent under the sole and wrapped so tightly they'd break. The bones would heal, wrong, and the foot would stay permanently deformed. Why go through such pain? Because tiny feet symbolise status, wealth and marriage potential. If your feet weren't bound, good luck finding a husband. Women with bound feet could barely walk. Their lives were filled with pain. But many accepted it as normal, because for centuries, that's just how it was. So ask yourself, how far would you go to be seen as desirable? What are our modern versions of this today? The practice was banned in the early 1900s, but the psychological scars? Those last generations. Aztec human sacrifice, Mesoamerica. Picture this, thousands of people packed into a grand plaza, music echoing, drums pounding, and at the top of a towering pyramid, someone's heart is being cut out. Welcome to Aztec human sacrifice. To us, it sounds barbaric, but to the Aztecs, it was cosmic maintenance. They believed the gods, especially Huitzilopochtli, the sun god, needed human blood to survive. No blood, the sun wouldn't rise, the world would end. So they gave a lot. Prisoners of war were marched up the steps. Priests using razor-sharp obsidian blades cut open their chests and removed still-beating hearts. Then the bodies were thrown down the stairs. During major festivals, thousands could be sacrificed in a matter of days. Yes, thousands. Imagine witnessing that. The smell of blood, the chanting crowds, the terrifying devotion. It wasn't about cruelty, it was duty. A sacred deal between humans and gods. So, was it mass murder or the price of keeping the universe running? Sky burial, Tibet. What if, when you died, your final resting place was the sky? In Tibet, that's not poetry, it's tradition. They call it sky burial. And it's exactly what it sounds like. After death, the body is taken to a sacred mountaintop. There, a specialist called a rogyapa dismembers the body, and it's left for vultures to eat. Yes, it sounds shocking, but in Tibetan Buddhism, the body is just a vessel. Once the soul departs, the body is nothing more than a shell, and feeding it to birds is considered an act of generosity. Think about it. Instead of sealing the dead away, sky burial gives them back to nature. It's a cycle. Flesh becomes sustenance. Death feeds life. No embalming, no caskets, no walls. Just the open sky. And wings. To many, this sounds grotesque, but to the Tibetans, it's sacred, serene, and surprisingly beautiful. Would you want a funeral like that? Finger amputation, Dani tribe, Indonesia. What does grief look like in your culture? For the Dani tribe of Papua Indonesia, it looked like this. Chopping off a fingertip. Literally, when someone died, especially a close family member, women were expected to cut off part of a finger as a symbol of their sorrow. Not metaphorically, with a stone, axe or knife and no anaesthesia. The pain was the point. They believed the physical suffering helped release emotional pain and even scared off evil spirits that might cling to the grieving. Over time, some women lost half their fingers, each joint a memory of someone lost. It's now illegal, and the younger generation doesn't practice it. But older Dani women still wear the scars, like a living necklace of mourning. Let me ask you, if you had to give up a part of your body to honour a loved one, would you? For the Dani, pain was part of love, a way to carry it, literally, forever. Famadihana Madagascar. Most of us think of funerals as sombre, silent events. But in Madagascar, they dance with the dead, literally. The ritual is called Famadihana, or the turning of the bones. Every few years, families dig up their ancestors, rewrap them in fresh cloth, and parade them through the village, with music, dancing, food, and celebration. Why? Because death isn't goodbye. It's just part of life. This joyful ritual keeps the bond alive. It's a chance to reunite, to introduce new family members, to celebrate lineage. Imagine introducing your grandmother to your newborn, decades after she passed. It's not about being creepy. It's about honouring memory with movement, with sound, with love. To us, it may seem shocking, but in Madagascar, it's warmth, family, joy. So what if you could turn mourning into celebration? Would you? Scaism, ancient Persia. Okay, brace yourself. This last one is not for the faint of heart. It's called Scaism, an ancient Persian method of execution that makes every horror movie look tame. Here's how it worked. The victim was stripped naked and placed between two small boats, almost like a human sandwich. Their arms, legs, and head were left exposed. Then they were force-fed milk and honey and smeared with more honey from head to toe. Why? To attract insects. The boat was set adrift in a stagnant swamp or left under the hot sun. Flies, maggots, and wasps would descend, and over several days or even weeks, the person would be eaten alive. They couldn't move, couldn't escape. Infection, exposure, madness. It was slow, agonizing, and meant to be a public warning. Plutarch described it as one of the cruelest deaths imaginable. And honestly, he wasn't exaggerating. It's the darkest entry on this list, and a brutal reminder that rituals aren't always sacred. Sometimes they're pure terror. So here's the question. Do we remember rituals like this to understand our past, or to remind ourselves how far we've come? These rituals may seem strange, even shocking to us today, but they show just how far people have gone across time and culture to honour death, express love, or reach the divine. Some are beautiful, some are brutal, but all are unforgettable. Which one blew your mind the most? Let me know in the comments, and if you enjoyed this deep dive into ancient weirdness, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell for more top 10s every week.